Thank you very much, Adriana.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we have several formats here to set up. We have panels, we have lectures, we have fire chats in terms of formats. And as I said yesterday, we're gonna conduce depends on the guest or the lecturers will be more comfortable. So some of them in Spanish, some of them in English. So you just use your headphones to listen to the translation when it's needed. So we will announce the language before each session starts. And you are sharp in time.
And we are serving time.
Yeah.
You have your headphones, so I'm going to get mine, but the next speaker is in English.
Yeah, it's in
so
English.
I will just get my coffee.
Okay.
Super. And I will pass the floor to Alex. I would like to make some noise for Alex.
Go.
Thank you very much. And you can continue and we'll drink coffee and hear the next keynote. Okay,
I'll
bye.
push the noise for you then. Okay. Thank you so much. So our first to open our event, which is focused on AI for prosperity in a very huge sense. Now we're going to get deep dives in several points as we started yesterday. I'm very pleased to call here soon because she's with an issue in her leg, so I'm really concerned. I like to pronounce it properly, her name. Aisha Ayruk. Is it right? Welcome.
I'll stand for now. Thank you. Yes, I'll stand for now. Don't worry, I'm not in pain. I've just been doing something I shouldn't be doing at my age and trying to play football with my 13-year-old. Buenos dias, Buenos Aires. ¿Cómo está?
We can do it in Spanish, so.
Don't get excited. That's the extent of my Spanish. But
I'll just introduce you a little bit the topic that you're going to talk. I'm getting old, so as old as you do, the paper get far away from your eyes. So shaping the future of intelligence with AI ethics and policy.
yes.
So Mrs. Aishruk is a senior fellow from the Center for AI and Digital Policy in the U.S.
Yes.
So I'd like to welcome you so much, and I'm looking forward to listening to you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm super excited to be here. It's my first time in Buenos Aires. I am so thankful for the organizers for having the vision and the resilience to bring us all together from across America and the globe to have this discussion on exciting technology. I am with Center for AI and Digital Policy based in Washington, D.C. I came from New York, but we work globally to rate countries' national AI policies and strategies and their alignment with democratic values, the rule of law, and human rights. Before I wrapped myself in AI policy, I was with an education tech startup. We pitched ourselves as good tech, as peace tech, as an alternative to social media. We had an hypothesis, and we said, look, if we know these tech platforms are not neutral, what if we were to connect young people online, face-to-face, from all around the world, in a semi-structured, semi-controlled environment? We provide them with highly trained cross-cultural facilitators, and they will get to discuss really politically and socially sensitive topics. And at the same time, we will target the acquisition of certain skills and attitudes that as humans we have competitive advantage. These are the skills that will allow the future generation remains resilient. These are the skills that will prepare them when the machine came for our jobs, so they are not out of jobs. So it was back then, 10, 15 years ago, we were asking the question, how does the future look like? What does the future of education, future of labor look like? How do we make sure that we thrive in this new environment? So a lot of my presentation is informed by keeping in mind the future of education and skills and so on. And when we're talking about artificial intelligence, first we have to think a little bit about intelligence to put AI into perspective. or in its place when it's needed. And I like to start with what I call it the question zero. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a product manager, an investor, a student, a policymaker, a consumer trying to figure out how to use AI, or how to allocate resources in your organization, or how to come up with a product in terms of where do I need human resources and where do I need AI resources, the question zero is your understanding of intelligence. What does intelligence mean to you? Now you can think about this question in the back of your head, and I'm going to ask a lot of questions where I don't have the answer, so it's really for you to sort of think, apply critical thinking, but at the same time there will be times we're going to have to connect with our hearts, because that's where the ethics issues around values lie, between our mind and our hearts. So Silicon Valley has made a very bold theory on intelligence. It's worth billions, and perhaps it's a hypothesis on what may be true rather than what is true based on hard evidence. Intelligence in its simple form is our ability to provide answers to complex problems. What if I were to tell you intelligence begins with the questions we ask? Because the question you ask really depends on, number one, who you are, where you sit, what you perceive to be a problem. What is your problem might not be my problem. And number two, it really depends on the tools that are at your disposal. What do you have to solve this problem? And there's an American philosopher, Abraham Kaplan, and he introduced this in the 1960s, the theory of the law of instrument. Basically, he said, give a boy a hammer, and it's a boy, not a girl, because it makes a difference. Give a boy a hammer, and all he'll look is a place to pound on. Basically, you might be familiar with the term, if all you have is a hammer, then all you will see is nails. Basically, this law refers to a cognitive bias in which we try to tend to fit problems to the instruments, to the tools that we have, and it's very practical and it's very normal. A word about cognitive bias, because bias is such a central theme in AI. There is a reason that we all have biases, because our human body have 5 senses, and I like to call them sensors for the purposes of AI. The human body receives about 11 million bits of information per second through our visual. This is only our visual, not our hearing, through our visual sensors. But our brain is only capable of processing about 50 bits of information per second. So then what needs to happen is mental shortcuts to be able to drive quick conclusions, and this is instrumental for our survival, but at the same time it can lead to systemic errors in judgment. So the number one thing is to not deny that we have bias, to remove the stigma around bias and accept it that as humans we have bias. It's normal. It's only natural. It's only human. When we get rid of the stigma and we accept as humans we have bias, then what we can do is we can gain awareness and we stop ourselves before taking actions that can lead to discrimination. We can stop ourselves or think before we pass it on to products and codes that can then scale. So the first step is to, okay, I'm human, I have bias, it's normal. Now, that is how the humans process data. Large language models have a different way of processing data. We have 5 sensors, they use text. Text is the teacher for processing data. And by the time a child 4 years old, it has already seen 50 times more data than the biggest LLMs. Basically what this means is we can get smarter quicker because we have multiple sensors. And this is true even if you're talking about models like Sora, which are trained on video, audio. The intermediary for being able to interpret what's happening is text. Text is the teacher. Now let's take a few seconds about biological intelligence. We talked about the LLMs. We have our 5 sensors. We're constantly processing information. Basically, the difference is AI, large language models, try to portray data. can see processed video, but we live it. And we live it, when we live it, the other senses are all interacting with each other. And our DNA is an ancestral code that has been decoded through the years of evolution, fine-tuned by pressures for survivability. That was a little bit word about generative AI. We're going to dig deep into it. When we're talking about AI, whether we're talking about the opportunities or the challenges, it's important to have some sort of understanding between different types of AI. Because when we say, oh, this AI is bad, this is great, there are really different ways. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we choose the right model for the right cause. So we are more, let's say, intelligent about how we use AI. So the rule-based AI has been around for a long time. If it's A, then it's B, you code it. So for instance, an algorithm might say, if the student is displaying this, then if the student gets 50 below, then alert the student's possibility of dropping out is 72%. Predictive AI, which then reflects on historical data, my parent, it's good for mechanism on high-risk areas, sensitive areas where we want to be able to explain what happened. But predictive AI, and there are many data scientists around it, so you will know better, there are risks around it. Number one, you might be training the data on the population and not use it on the same population. It might not be reflective of the population you're using on it. The data might be biased, and so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, in 2020, the UK government had to cancel university exams because of COVID. So what they did is instead they went with an algorithm that assigned a grade for the students. Now, a student got rejected to a university exam, to the university that he applied, and then after that they started an investigation because this was a really good student. And what they found, the algorithm performed better on smaller private schools. Why? Two reasons. Number one, when the school is smaller, the weight that went to the individual performance was higher than if the school was larger. Now, the larger schools happen to be in public places and poorer areas. And these larger schools also had a historically low performance. So what ended up happening is this algorithm disfavored a student because went to a public school in a poor district. And then the UK government, there was a scandal, the UK government retracted the decision, and they went to human teachers' decisions instead. So these are the rule-based and predictive AI. Now we're going to dip a little bit into generative AI. We're going to do a little exercise, but I need to drink a little water. Oh, so thirsty. How are we doing so far? Is it making sense? Yeah. Okay. So imagine we have a smart refrigerator. It's the newest, latest you bought for your kitchen. And you ask your refrigerator to make your favorite omelet every morning. You get your shopping, you label your ingredients, you have your eggs labeled, cheese labeled, spinach, what you want to go in there, and you give the instructions clearly to your refrigerator, prepare my favorite omelet in the morning, and the next morning you're there, boom, your favorite omelet, and it looks like this. Then your refrigerator gets an upgrade. And now, this morning, you tell your refrigerator, surprise me, create something different. And your omelet looks like this. Then you're like, you don't recognize, there's some ingredients in there you don't recognize. You don't know, I haven't bought mushrooms, where did they come from? Were they organic? Were they washed? Whose recipe is this? And you're asking several questions which you are not able to get answers to. And we will discuss about the challenges of generative AI. I think we all know they're not without solutions. There are technical solutions, there are social solutions to fixing a lot of these problems. in terms of what we're experiencing with generative AI, but one of the biggest challenges is around transparency. Now, the companies, tech companies, want to be transparent, but that doesn't mean that they can explain things, or explainability doesn't mean interpretability. So I can be transparent about the fact that I can't explain and I can't be transparent. So those are the times that we're talking about black box systems. These are not rule-based. We don't actually know what's happening behind the scenes. So let's talk a little bit about AI's relationship with science. When you give a prompt to ChatGPT, you might say, tell me why people get cold in the winter. You might get an answer that says something like, well, because in winter people are in close places and that facilitates the transition of viruses. What's not happening behind the scenes is not ChatGPT running an experiment. It's not a scientific experiment. There's no lab behind it. There's no verification of variables, there's no testing. It's just a statistical correlation. And this is a significant thing to remember. If there's one thing that you get away from today, and I hope there's others, is science is about cause and effect. Generative is about correlation. It's not the same thing. But AI can be a great ally in helping us with scientific discovery. There are ways we can integrate it in our scientific methodology that can allow us to spot trends, connect the dots with millions and billions of parameters that we are not able to do. It can free up our time to do other things, to make actual experiments. But AI's relationship with science is complicated. It's not straightforward. So there are two categories of science where AI works so well, and a category of science that AI becomes problematic. When we are dealing with quantitative hard laws, these are predictable, observable, you have really high quality data, and you can control. This is an area that AI would work well. For instance, Google DeepMind's AlphaFold. It's an AI program that is designed to accelerate innovation in biology. AlphaFold and ChatGPT are both trained on massive amounts of data. ChatGPT scrapes data from internet. It can be junk. It can be biased. On the other hand, AlphaFold gets its data from a data bank. It's comprehensive, it's structured, it's hard quality, and if there is bias, you can spot it easy. I mean, there's ways that bias can get into hard sciences. If you're doing an experiment, if you're experimenting drug, if you're testing a drug on cancer, and if you're only using male mice to test, then your drug might not work on females. But you can easily correct this, just test it on the female mice as well, right? It's sort of easy to spot. In behavioral sciences, things get complicated. Now, my background is in political science, and I've engaged in a lot of qualitative sort of research studies, and there's a lot of lessons we can draw from history, and history repeats itself, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, human behavior has so many variables that doesn't stay static. It's dynamic. So when we're using AI, where we cannot clearly label data, it's perceptive, it changes, then AI becomes problematic. So this is one distinction to keep in mind when working with AI. I believe there is so much potential in here, and this is the area that we have to be cautious. So we talked a lot about risks. Obviously, there are various risks, but the few that I lean on is around learning, especially in education, that we need to think about skill loss, and when we are using AI, what we are not using. Obviously, we're going to adjust. It's part of our evolution. Certain skills, like our tooth, we're losing the wisdom tooth. We don't need it. We lose it. But we have to be conscious about what skills and attitudes we want to keep, what responsibilities and tasks we want to delegate, and which ones we don't. In the big picture, obviously, the democracy is huge. Democratizing power of AI is absolutely there. I created this presentation using this AI app called Beautiful AI. And I used AI in sort of proofing and editing my texts. And if it wasn't for it, it would probably take me longer to do it. There's a lot of potential. But at the same time, democratizing AI means public participation. There's public participation in decision making. There is a way in which the public doesn't only have access to the gadgets and to the technology, but has access to the rules around how it might be used. Okay. And that's where the human rights come in. One of the ethical questions, it's for you to think about, should AI have rights? So Anthropic is one of the companies that the founders left OpenAI, and they created their behind the cloud a large language model. And they have just hired a full-time researcher to focus on AI's feelings, just to make sure that, are we hurting AI's feelings? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with, this is a very sad incident where a young boy, 14 years old, commits suicide because her AI chatbot girlfriend told him to do so. And I actually listened to the interview with the mother, and what surprised me and what touched me was, you know, when she noticed that he was spending a lot of time on the phone, she asked him, it's like, what are you doing? Are you talking to a stranger? And he said, no, I am talking to an AI bot. And she was relieved, because she perceived the human stranger to be danger, where AI was not a threat. So the slide that I just passed through, this is about really the human industries, human-led industries, making a case for human rights. We have to think about AI rights, we have to think about human rights, who is defending our rights. If we are wronged by an AI system, if I buy a plane ticket from a chatbot and it promises me refund, if I don't get a refund, then who's responsible for that decision? Now, one of the things that you'll hear is this is part of our evolution. We had technology all around, and it's always good for everyone. It will lift up societies. Darim Acemoglu, an economist who won the Nobel Prize for his book, Power and Progress, he researched 1,000 years of history to see how technology benefits were distributed, and what he found that they were not automatic, that there was always an intervention, that we had to make social and political interventions in order to make sure that we were reaping the benefits. Otherwise, those benefits are likely to go to a few people who have the control. Now, how do we respond? Obviously, we want free and fair markets, and we want to have some red lines in terms of where we know and where we draw a line. If we know where we draw a line, where we have our boundaries, and we say, okay, these are the areas we want to be careful, this is where we want to go wild. We have an understanding AI literacy. This is what we're doing here right now to raise awareness around engaging with these technologies. Our organization has the universal guidelines for AI, these principles that just sort of gives an overview, and I would share the website at the end where you can use it as a resource. And this is sort of the beginning of AI governance. You might be hearing these terms used interchangeably, but they kind of relate to different components of coming up with a framework, with a policy. Now, my organization puts together the Artificial Intelligence and Democratic Values Index. We rate about over 80 countries based on 12 metrics, with participation from AI researchers from all around the world, representing 100-some countries. And Americas has been in action. There has been a lot of There's been a lot of action frameworks from UN, from the EU, Africa now is this regional strategy, Americas, Mexico, Canada, US, Uruguay, Costa Rica, Peru, Argentina, they participated in the first AI Human Rights Treaty. There has been UNESCO's AI Readiness Assessment Methodology. I would recommend for everyone to just sort of familiarize yourself with that framework. It's a very useful framework to have a comprehensive approach. There has been a lot of frameworks. And this is sort of like the awareness is there. The genie is kind of out of the bottle. And what is the international, why do we need to cooperate with each other? There's a tendency now to really think about, okay, we want to be competitive, we want to be resilient, and how do we approach this? And there's a lot of things about AI that really pushes us towards collaboration. Number one, nobody has the full control over an AI supply chain, from the raw materials to the physical infrastructure to the cyber assets, from talent to data. If we have cross-cultural data, if we're sourcing large language models with local data unique to our culture and language, then we are reducing the possibility of bias, and if we work together and if we can agree on shared values, then we have less fragmented structure. It's good for startups, it's good for big companies to know that they don't have to have a separate legal team and a compliance team for a different state or a different country, and that we can facilitate this exchange better. So I'm going to stop here because I want to leave time for questions. The last question I had was this. I kind of have my own answer, but I want you to sort of think about it. I think about it as a very mutually beneficial coexistence, if we know our risks and our rights. But I also wanted you to think about it, and I'm going to end here. Hopefully there are some questions from the floor. How are we doing on time?
We have
5 minutes?
Yeah, we have room for probably one question there. And then
The thing with DCN events, what I think is very important, that we are all together during 2 days. So it's not a huge event, it's not a small event as well, it's a medium size. So we're going to have lunch with you.
Yes.
We're going to have dinner with you.
Yes.
We're going to spend the afternoon with you. So I think we can also talk to you during the days and create a community where I think is good. But I will open the floor for the gentleman who was the first one who raised his hand.
Hello, my name is Javier Carranza. I'm director of an NGO from Colombia. I didn't introduce myself, that's why I'm saying that. Just my question was if you could give a few insights into the different frameworks to regulate AI on the ethics side. I know the European Commission has been working a lot about this, but could you give a general overview about that regarding UN and EU? How are they related or different?
That's a very good question without an easy answer. So the EU AI Act is probably the closest in terms of being translated into hard enforceable laws. Apart from the EU AI Act, what we see internationally are more about countries getting together, making declarations around shared values, and promising to work on something. They have to go back to their countries and implement and have national conversations with the parliaments and so on and so forth. In the United States, I think there has been 530 resolutions and laws have been introduced, but only a few will pass, not all will pass, only maybe a few. And these are, we're really looking at high-risk areas in terms of deep fakes in elections, deep fakes for sexual abuse in children. This is an area. Areas that affect our human rights, access to education, healthcare, employment, in law enforcement. These are things we don't, the presumption of innocence, something that has to be protected. It's a very critical area. using of deep fakes as fake evidence. So regulation of autonomous vehicle, electric vehicles. The autonomous, lethal autonomous weapons is a different category, but it is also a very high risk area. So in terms of the biggest contest is where, how do we look at the risks? How do we assess risk? Because this is not like you have water, you boil water, you know where the water is going to boil at what temperature everywhere you go. It's the same thing. But with AI, you're looking at large language models. Is it the quantity? Is it going to get more dangerous and more powerful if it gets better? Or is it how we apply it? Is it the use case? So the biggest discussions has been really around trying to come up with a way how we think about risks. For us, the risks are very simple. We're just going to think about the way to protect human rights. If there is a challenge in which our rights can be undermined, we're discriminated against because an algorithm decided that we weren't going to perform well in a job, we were fired or hired because of an algorithm, we were denied a loan or a financial service or mortgage because of an algorithm, those are the high-risk areas. So really, you have to think about what you think is the risk. Different states have different approaches, but employment, education, financial services, I would put as high risk. I don't know if that answered the question.
So you ask a round of applause to Aisha. A round of applause, please.
No more questions?
Have to check it out.
Because we have one question over
Yeah,
there.
we have room for more.
Okay.
I got child.
Yeah? Are you sure?
Hi, I'm Maricel. I am from Argentina. I work at City Compass and work with civil society. So you said that Democrats. Do you hear? Yeah.
No, the problem is the translation. You need to
Oh,
use the
yeah.
mic.
Thank you. I really like your presentation. You talk about democratizing the discussion about AI. What do you think is the real power that civil society organizations or movements of people has in influencing the way that AI is designed? Is there a real leverage with all the power asymmetries? Thanks.
Power asymmetry. I think that is huge. When we're looking at AI, we're going to look at values, power, and rights. And power asymmetry is the one thing that we need to keep in hold of, because we talked about if you have the power to determine the question, then you have the power to basically everything. One of the metrics that we use in our index is we look at countries' ways whether they have established meaningful processes for public participation in decision making. If they're passing a law, can the people have, and this, we see this around the world because we respond to these public requests with my organization, whether it's from the US or whether it's coming from a different country or the UN. Are there any meaningful ways that civil society, as a civil society, public can participate? So I think that's the number one step, is to gain some foundational AI literacy to be able to understand your rights, and then participate, ask for that opportunity to participate in decision making, civil society. I hope we will have the leverage. I think we are not there, but after this conference, we'll be closer.
I think 5 minutes is good enough. So I will just for one more, because the lady back there asked first. So yeah, there are a lot. So
There are a lot.
yeah, there are a lot.
I'm
But
here. I'm going to hang out
Yeah.
after this.
I
and
think we
will-
can talk, but one more is okay because we are still in time.
Thank you very much. My name is Catherine. I'm also working in international cooperation, specifically for the Inter-American Development Bank. And based on your experience, what do you think are the next challenges within international cooperation to regulate AI? Specifically because, yes, there's a lot of incentives that we're doing, but there is also governments that have a limited capacity on implementing a regulatory framework. So what do you think are the strategies in terms of adopting projects in countries that are probably not even looking at regulation versus incentivizing them to do that first before adopting these projects? So any good practices that you have related to this sector?
That's a very good question, because there's a lot of push right now internationally to get resources to countries where they don't have. The companies are ahead of us in terms of pushing for infrastructure, pushing for investments, and at the same time, do we invest first in infrastructure and then come up with the rules? Or do we come up with the rules first? And we have to do them simultaneously. And I agree with you that it puts a lot of governments that are not necessarily have the best of resources. I was speaking at the UN last week, and this was one of the things that was brought to me by the missions, and some smaller missions have only one person to attend different AI tracks, while another country might have 20. So distribution of resources, this is where this comes in, and really for countries with the resources to help out with the other countries with the less resources, because at the end of the day, these are the other countries that are going to open up markets. If they have reliable, predictable, trustworthy AI infrastructure and products, that's always good for business. Always good for business. Business wants predictability in order to make investment decisions. Are we hiring? Which location are we going? So in that sense, we have to really understand our codependency and help each other. But I hear you. It's not an easy answer.
We have more 6 or 7 questions, so it will be impossible to attend all of you, but let's do it during the day, because we're going to be together, okay? I apologize about you and ask you a round of applause to Mr. Einstein.
Thank you. Huh? Yes, yes. Thank you. I'm just going to get my things.
So now we're going to switch to Spanish, okay? So the next one will be in Spanish. So I'll wait. Oh, gracias, muchas gracias. Sí, más una sola vez. Esta y más. Sí, tres. Sí, empezamos bien, ¿no? Ahora vamos a la segunda sesión, que será un panel de debate de discusión sobre innovación y crecimiento, cómo llegar a innovación y crecimiento con el uso del IA. Estoy traducido del inglés también al mismo tiempo acá, porque el programa está en inglés. Y llamo dos viceministros, ex viceministros de dos naciones acá, ¿sí? Me gustaría con mucho honor de llamar doctor Luis Adrián Salazar, que es consultor independiente internacional, profesor de la Universidad Latina de Costa Rica, y también viceministro de Cultura ex ministro de Tecnología de Costa Rica. Sí, por favor. Y para compor el panel, un colombiano, será un panel muy latinoamericano y también muy mixto, señor Iván Durán, fellow de la Fundación de ID Foundation, profesor de la Universidad Externado y también fue ex viceministro de la Transformación Digital de Colombia. Hay un tema central acá, que es justamente la transformación digital. Sí, yo pienso que, muchas gracias por estar acá. Vamos a hacer como preguntas y respuestas, y después aguardamos también la interacción tuya, se pueden erguer la mano y vamos a hacer así. Una pregunta que me viene siempre, y pienso que cuando hablamos de transformación digital, tenemos que empezar desde cero, porque hay mucha confusión sobre qué es el concepto de transformación digital, sobre todo en gobiernos, en el sector público, porque si pensamos en una transformación digital, pensamos si es un beneficio para la población o para la eficiencia del gobierno e indirectamente a la población, o es una transformación que también se causa un beneficio directo al acceso de la población a los servicios del gobierno. Sí, entonces, Pensando en transformación digital sobre el punto de vista de los gobiernos de las naciones, ¿qué es esto?
Bueno, primero que todo, muy buenos días, muchas gracias. Thank you very much for all the organization. It's a pleasure to be here, especially for DCN and the Embassy of the United States and all the people who make that day happen here. Vamos a ver, cuando hablamos de transformación digital, lo primero que tenemos que darnos cuenta es que una política pública es una decisión país. Es hacia dónde vamos, hacia dónde caminamos, hacia dónde queremos ir y qué queremos para los ciudadanos y las empresas. Y aquí hay un tema, y es que la velocidad con la que se están moviendo las tecnologías digitales no permiten o no han logrado penetrar en el entendimiento, y hablo en general, de muchos tomadores de decisión. Entonces, muchos líderes de países hablan de inteligencia artificial, hablan de ciberseguridad, hablan de 5G, pero no saben qué es. Y entonces estamos en un mundo donde estamos de la inteligencia artificial generativa a la ocurrencia humana reiterativa. Y entonces falta prioridad, falta entendimiento y falta darnos cuenta que el ser humano debe estar en el centro de toda la ecuación, potenciado por la empresa privada y pensando en que tenemos que movernos rápidamente. Ciertamente, la transformación de las instituciones, la transformación de lo existiendo con una tecnología que por primera vez toma decisiones. Entonces yo creo que la transformación en este instante requiere de la capacidad de adaptarnos y entender qué es lo que está sucediendo en el mundo para poder tomar decisiones asertivas, obviamente en beneficio de las personas y de las empresas bajo un esquema de co-creación.
Gracias, Iván.
Bueno, muchas gracias por la invitación, Alex.
No,
Luis, y un gusto para todos, un saludo, un placer estar acá con ustedes compartiendo ideas y nuestra experiencia en transformación digital y tecnología. Bueno, como tú lo decías, lo introducías también, Luis, pues es un concepto que es de esos difíciles de definir, está en constante evolución. Yo en mi práctica laboral, más de 10 años más o menos trabajando desde el gobierno nacional y también gobiernos locales en la alcaldía de Bogotá, al final creo que la forma más operacionalizable, instrumentalizable, entender la inteligencia artificial es a través de un proceso, entenderlo como un proceso de producción. Y así lo he visto y me ha servido para aterrizar más el tema. En ese proceso de producción pues hay unos insumos, y esos insumos son de manera general las tecnologías digitales, que hoy en día pues tenemos una gama muy amplia de tecnologías, en el cual pues la que está más de moda y hablando nosotros hoy que nos trae es la inteligencia artificial, pero pues hay muchas otras cosas. Tecnologías digitales mezcladas o mezcladas con nuevas formas de trabajar. Eso es importante tenerlo en cuenta dentro de esos insumos en esa cadena de producción. Tecnologías digitales y nuevas formas de trabajar, y sobre todo pensando en nuevas formas de trabajar ágiles. Esos insumos nos debe llevar a unos procesos, a unos resultados y a unos impactos que nosotros esperamos como líderes de organizaciones públicas, pero también este framework sirve para pensar organizaciones privadas, por supuesto. Y cuando pensamos en esos insumos, ¿para qué nos sirven? Pues la manera más sencilla de pensar el para qué nos sirve es, esto puede transformar o generar cambios en dos dimensiones de una organización, ya sea pública o privada. O genera cambios en la manera como se trabaja en sus procesos internos, o genera cambios en la manera en como nosotros atendemos a nuestros clientes. Desde una empresa privada pues es el customer service, y desde una entidad pública es la ciudadanía, pero es la misma lógica. Y entonces, ¿y para qué queremos hacer eso? Pues si trabajamos al interior de la organización pública o privada, esto que queremos generar un resultado en eficiencia operacional, ¿sí? Reducir costos y ser más productivos en ese sentido. O si nos enfocamos en el customer service o atender mejor a la ciudadanía, pues es ese lado de querer nosotros clientes o ciudadanos más felices con las entidades que nosotros estamos liderando. ¿verdad? Ahora, decidir qué priorizar, si trabajar primero en la eficiencia operacional de la entidad o trabajar primero en la atención al ciudadano, eso depende, ahí donde está, digamos, el quid del asunto, y depende del tipo de organización que uno está liderando. Por ejemplo, para los gobiernos, para las entidades públicas, como pasa tan rápido el tiempo y los políticos tienen o tenemos, o incluyo, tenemos que entregar resultados pronto, no nos podemos quedar o enfocarnos solamente a solucionar lo que llaman los expertos en TI, el silos y espagueti de las entidades, porque necesitamos que la ciudadanía se sienta feliz, y entonces tenemos que trabajar también rápidamente en entregar mejores servicios. Pero desde el punto de vista privado, las entidades privadas, esa decisión depende mucho del ambiente competitivo del mercado en el que, o el sector en el que se esté trabajando. Si son industrias con mucha competencia, tienen que enfocarse de pronto más en el customer service. Si son sectores no tan competitivos, de pronto pueden dedicarle más tiempo a eficiencia operacional. Pero en fin, hay un montón de variables que al final va a definir qué decisión yo tomo de esa ruta, por dónde me muevo en esa ruta. Más o menos así es como he entendido yo la transformación digital.
¿Tú piensas que, por ejemplo, cuando tenemos una transformación, un efecto de un plan digital para una compañía, siempre la compañía va a pensar sobre el punto de vista del consumidor, desde el consumidor para adentro, ¿no? Cómo esto se llega a la compra, por ejemplo, a la compra de servicio, a la compra de producto, y después se va bajando hasta lo que quiera hacer propiamente. El gobierno muchas veces, para mí muchas veces no queda claro, porque no se parte del punto de vista del ciudadano, pero muchas veces se parte de otros principios que no son los ciudadanos, que el fin del gobierno es para las personas, ¿no? Esta transformación no parece que se parte del punto de vista inicial del ciudadano. ¿Cómo se mira esta situación en Costa Rica y en Colombia particularmente?
Mire, el tema es que cuando hablamos de ciudadanos, o sea, a mí ¿qué ocurre en los países actualmente? Tenemos cientos de estrategias. Estrategia de telecomunicaciones, estrategia de ciberseguridad, estrategia de inteligencia artificial, la estrategia para cumplir la estrategia de la estrategia, y ahí seguimos. Y entonces, al final, la prioridad, quién la maneja, de qué manera se convierte en una realidad, cómo se mide, es donde está el secreto. ¿Por qué? Yo no, tal vez, vamos a ver, cuando decimos, es para que los ciudadanos estén felices, no, es que los ciudadanos deben de estar felices, es que no es un si quiero o no quiero, no, es que es el origen del gobierno, y además de eso, la capacidad de poder yo dar prioridad, recursos, capacidades, y sobre todo entender lo que está sucediendo, porque les voy a decir una cosa, también conforme vamos pasando, ocupamos una renovación de personas, ocupamos una renovación de gente. Yo hoy tuve la mayor dificultad, y ahora lo compartí en el desayuno con unos colegas jóvenes, no tan jóvenes yo, ¿verdad? Pero bueno, porque yo les dije que mi mayor dificultad había sido hoy si me ponía o no me ponía corbata, porque con esta energía, ¿verdad? La Macarena y toda esa cosa tan bonita, ¿verdad? Yo no me veía pero yo soy así. Si me dan una camiseta mañana me pongo un t-shirt, pero yo soy así, uso corbata cuando doy la conferencia y me gusta usar pañuelo en la solapa. Los gobiernos deben de responder a los deseos de los ciudadanos. Y la mejor manera es darnos cuenta que las tecnologías cada vez son más convergentes. Es más difícil hablar de inteligencia artificial sin tocar ciberseguridad y sin tocar telecomunicaciones, y todo debe ser mucho más convergente. Porque vean ustedes la dificultad que tienen cuando hablamos de transformación digital, mis queridos compañeros. Hablamos de transformación digital, pero resulta que puede que haya pueblos donde no tengan agua, donde no tengan electricidad, donde no tengan educación, donde acceso a la educación, donde no tengan acceso a la salud. ¿Cómo les vamos a llegar a hablar de la inteligencia artificial generativa? ¿A dónde nos pueden enviar? Entonces, cuando hablamos de todo esto, yo creo que paralelo al desarrollo de infraestructura de telecomunicaciones, de infraestructura de servicios, la semana pasada estaba en Madrid y estábamos hablando sobre el tema de GovTech. cómo ya hemos pasado de hablar más de gobierno digital a hablar de transformación del Estado, de las instituciones a través de la tecnología. Entonces termino diciendo que yo pienso que debe haber prioridad, debe haber convergencia, debe haber trabajo paralelo y en algunas ocasiones, ¿saben qué digo yo? Ojalá que la inteligencia artificial no se nutra de lo que producimos los seres humanos, porque si no, el mundo del odio va a ser tan grande dentro de 5 o 10 años, porque nos hemos hecho especialistas en odiarnos y en pelear y no tal vez en buscar puntos de convergencia hacia adelante. Y entonces la tecnología tiene valor en función de la prosperidad si entendemos que esto es el resultado del trabajo conjunto validado por todas estas nuevas infraestructuras y estos mundos digitales, poniendo al ser humano en el centro de la ecuación.
De acuerdo. Para continuar con esa misma idea, y lo que yo venía explicando también anteriormente es, desde mi punto de vista, una organización, ya sea pública o privada, que se puede decir que está transformada digitalmente, es aquella que logra, en esas dos dimensiones que yo propuse, avanzar. O sea, que es una empresa que en sus procesos internos es eficiente gracias a la tecnología y además entrega mejores servicios a sus clientes o ciudadanía gracias a la tecnología. Como les decía, el quid del asunto es que va primero. Desde el punto de vista del gobierno, de acuerdo con Luis, sí o sí, la ciudadanía, uno tiene que pensar en cómo yo uso todo lo que hay disponible hoy en día de tecnología para hacer mejor mi trabajo como gobierno. Pero la cosa, creo yo, digamos en la práctica es muy complejo porque al final, si la entidad no funciona bien internamente, eso va a bloquear la eficiencia con la cual yo puedo entregar servicios. Si yo me enfoco solamente en la atención al ciudadano y no trabajar en el back office a solucionar sobre todo los problemas de silos de información, que es muy complejo, tarde o temprano yo me enfoco solamente en la ciudadanía y lo que hago es crear más silos, problematizo más la oficina de TI y al final pues se acaba el gobierno, yo de pronto termino con buena popularidad, pero termino con cada vez más problemas más complejos de información al interior. Entonces, aquí lo complicado, digamos, creo yo como gerente público, digamos, si alguno de ustedes tiene la experiencia de ser gerente público en algún momento, ya lo han sido, es ese balance, cómo yo voy solucionando los dos temas, siempre, como decía Luis, con esa idea de que pues al final nos debemos a la ciudadanía, es nuestro propósito de ser, si estamos hablando de una entidad pública. Entonces el tema es bien enredado.